Can you tell us what Queen is all about?
It's basically a rock and roll band with lots of harmonies, lots of everything.
When most people think about Freddie Mercury, they picture an incredible performer with an amazing voice who could mix opera with rock music. He was the flamboyant frontman of Queen, known for his theatrical shows and powerful four-octave vocal range. But there was another side to Mercury that many fans never saw. He was a perfectionist with very strong opinions about other musicians. Mercury once said that doing things half-heartedly was a complete waste of time. This attitude didn't just apply to his own music. Unlike many rock stars who try to stay diplomatic in public, Mercury was known for speaking his mind about other musicians. He rarely filtered his thoughts, and his sharp tongue got him into conflicts with some of the biggest names in rock music. Peter Freestone, who worked as Mercury's personal assistant, remembered how brutal Mercury could be when judging other artists. If Mercury thought someone wasn't giving their best effort, he wouldn't hesitate to say so. These weren't just personality clashes. They were serious disagreements about art, creative control, and what rock music should sound like. Mercury's feuds with other rock stars show us a side of him that casual fans rarely glimpse. His conflicts weren't simply about not liking someone personally. They were battles over artistic vision and fundamental disagreements about music. Today, we'll explore 5 famous musicians that Freddie Mercury couldn't stand and understand why even some of rock's biggest stars found themselves facing the Queen frontman's legendary temper. The clash with Sid Vicious. One of the most famous confrontations in rock history happened between Freddie Mercury and Sid Vicious, the bassist from the Sex Pistols. This legendary encounter took place in 1977 at Wessex Studios in London. Queen was there recording their News of the World album, while the Sex Pistols were working on Nevis, Mind the Bollocks, in a nearby studio. At that time, the punk movement was becoming very popular and directly challenging bands like Queen. Punk rockers believed in simple, stripped-down music that focused more on attitude than technical skill. This was completely opposite to Queen's elaborate, complex musical style. According to Brian May, Queen's guitarist, Sid Vicious stumbled into their studio one day and sneered at Mercury, saying, "Still bringing ballet to the masses, Fred." This question was full of contempt for Queen's theatrical approach to rock music. But Mercury never backed down from a challenge. He reportedly fired back, "Oh yes, Mr. Ferocious, we're trying our best, dear." This exchange was more than just a quick insult between two musicians. It showed the huge divide between Mercury's musical philosophy and what punk rock stood for. The Sex Pistols and other punk bands championed a raw, anarchic approach that put attitude before musical skill. Mercury, on the other hand, was completely unapologetic about Queen's musical complexity and showmanship. In a 1982 interview with Melody Maker magazine, Mercury explained his feelings about simple music. He said he despised simplicity in music and thought it was wasteful to throw away years of learning musical craft. While some people thought it was clever to only know 3 chords, Mercury believed it was cleverer to learn all of them. Although he didn't mention Vicious by name in this interview, it was clear who he was criticizing. Mercury's disdain for punk went beyond just musical differences. He saw punk's rejection of musicianship as a threat to everything he valued about rock performance. He once said that sometimes when he watched certain bands, he thought anyone could go out there and be a rock star. But the real question was whether anyone could truly deliver a great performance. That's what separated the professionals from the amateurs, in his view. The irony was that both Mercury and the Sex Pistols were challenging rock conventions, but in completely different ways. Punk wanted to tear down what they saw as the excesses of 1970s rock music. Mercury, however, believed in pushing rock's boundaries through greater sophistication and more elaborate theatrical performances. This fundamental disagreement about what rock music should be created a rift that could never be bridged. Mercury saw punk's simplicity as lazy and unambitious, while punk rockers saw Queen's complexity as pretentious and out of touch. Neither side was willing to compromise their vision. The complicated relationship with Elton John. Many people would expect Freddie Mercury and Elton John to be the best of friends. After all, both were flamboyant, piano-playing frontmen who dominated the 1970s rock charts with theatrical performances and elaborate costumes. They were both known for their outrageous stage presence and seemed to have a lot in common. However, beneath their public displays of friendship lay a competitive rivalry that occasionally erupted into periods of cold silence and harsh criticism. Their relationship was complicated from the very beginning. Mercury once joked to the press that he and Elton were like sisters, adding, "And you know how sisters can be." This seemingly affectionate comment actually hinted at the underlying tension that would characterize their relationship for decades. By the early 1980s, as Queen experimented with disco influences on their album Hot Space, Mercury reportedly became critical of Elton's commercial direction. According to Queen producer Reinhold Mack, Mercury was particularly harsh about Elton's string of radio-friendly hits like Little Genie and Blue Eyes. Mack recalled that Mercury would listen to Elton's latest releases and just roll his eyes. Mercury would say things like, "Another tame peon. Oh, ballad for the masses. Where's the man who gave us Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting? He's become a jukebox for middle-aged housewives." This comment was particularly cruel because it targeted Elton's greatest fear, losing his edge as an artist. While Mercury continued to push boundaries with Queen's music, Elton was struggling with serious substance abuse problems that were affecting his ability to create music. Mercury, who prided himself on maintaining control despite his own party lifestyle, had little patience for what he saw as Elton wasting his talents. Their friendship reached its lowest point in 1985, after the Live Aid concert. While both artists delivered historic performances that day, the media's tendency to compare them against each other made their rivalry even more intense. When asked about Elton's performance, Mercury reportedly said, "Elton played the hits, as always. Safe choice. I prefer to take risks." Elton was hurt by Mercury's dismissive attitude toward his Live Aid performance. He retaliated by criticizing Queen's decision to perform in Sun City, South Africa, despite the cultural boycott against apartheid. Mercury was furious at what he saw as Elton's self-righteous posturing and hypocrisy. Years later, Elton admitted that Mercury had called him a hypocrite and acknowledged that Mercury wasn't entirely wrong. This admission shows how complex and painful their relationship had become. Despite their public friendship, there was always an undercurrent of competition and criticism that made their bond fragile and sometimes hostile. The creative clash with David Bowie, the collaboration between David Bowie and Freddie Mercury that produced Under Pressure, one of rock's most celebrated duets, almost didn't happen because of the explosive personalities involved. The 1981 studio sessions revealed what music journalist David Ambrose described it as two alpha wolves circling each other, neither willing to concede an inch of territory. While the finished track became an enduring classic that fans still love today, those who were present during its creation witnessed Mercury's frustration with Bowie's approach reach dangerous levels. Queen bassist John Deacon later revealed that there were moments when Mercury was ready to throw Bowie out of the studio completely. Their creative processes were just too different to work together smoothly. The main problem was that Mercury and Bowie had completely different ways of working. Mercury was methodical and structured, often arriving at the studio with fully formed ideas about what he wanted to accomplish. Bowie, on the other hand, preferred spontaneity and improvisation. He would sometimes scrap hours of work to pursue a completely new direction, which Mercury found incredibly frustrating. According to Queen's producer, Mercury found Bowie's approach maddening. Mercury reportedly said, "I've never met anyone so bloody difficult. David thinks changing his mind every 5 minutes is artistic. I call it wasting everyone's time. He'd rather chase some abstract concept down a rabbit hole than finish what we started." Mercury's irritation with Bowie extended beyond just their studio work. At a dinner following one of their recording sessions, Mercury allegedly became angry when Bowie dominated the conversation with talk about his interests in mysticism and alternative lifestyles. Mercury later told his personal assistant Peter Freestone, "For God's sake, if I hear one more word about Tibet or vegetarianism, I'll strangle him with his own scarf. Just because he's reinvented himself as some spiritual guru doesn't mean the rest of us need the lecture." What particularly annoyed Mercury was Bowie's transformation from the glam rock era of Ziggy Stardust to his more serious Berlin period. Mercury, who embraced theatrical excess wholeheartedly, viewed Bowie's artistic shift as pretentious and fake. Mercury commented to Rolling Stone magazine, though the quote was never published during his lifetime, that Bowie had turned his back on everything that made him interesting. Now he acts like wearing makeup and putting on a show is beneath him. If that's true, why does he keep calling me to collaborate? This comment reveals Mercury's frustration with what he saw as Bowie's hypocrisy. Mercury believed that if Bowie truly thought theatrical rock was beneath him, then he shouldn't have wanted to work with Queen, who were famous for exactly that kind of performance. Despite these creative tensions and personality conflicts, the two managed to complete Under Pressure, which became one of the most successful collaborations in rock history. However, they never worked together again, suggesting that the experience was too stressful for both of them to repeat. The failed collaboration with Rod Stewart. The abandoned collaboration between Freddie Mercury and Rod Stewart stands as one of rock music's most intriguing what-ifs. In 1982, during a chance meeting in Munich, the two distinctive vocalists came up with plans for a joint project that would showcase their vocal harmonies and contrasting styles. The idea was exciting. Combining Mercury's operatic power with Stewart's raspy rock voice could have created something truly special. However, within just a few weeks, the collaboration fell apart completely, dissolving into mutual accusations and hurt feelings. Mercury later complained to his close friend Mary Austin about Stewart's lack of commitment. "Rod couldn't commit to anything," Mercury said. "We'd set studio time and he'd cancel because he was playing bloody football or chasing some model. I don't have time for amateurs, darling, even if they've sold millions." This criticism hit a sensitive spot because it targeted Stewart's well-known reputation for putting pleasure before business. While Mercury was famously hedonistic in his private life, enjoying parties and luxury, he maintained iron discipline when it came to his music. Stewart's more casual approach to recording schedule infuriated the Queen frontman, who took his work very seriously. The situation got worse when Stewart reportedly arrived 3 hours late to a recording session and came unprepared. Mercury was so angry that he stormed out of the studio. Queen's manager, Jim Beach, later revealed that Mercury had particularly harsh words about Stewart's voice and artistic direction. According to Beach, Mercury said to him, "Jim, darling, Rod's rasp worked wonderfully when he was telling stories about street life with the Faces, but he's still growling away while singing about yachts and blondes. It's become a parody." This critique highlighted Mercury's frustration with what he saw as Stewart's failure to evolve as an artist. While Mercury constantly pushed to expand Queen's sound and explore new musical territories, he viewed Stewart's 1980s output as a retreat into safe, commercial territory. Mercury felt that Stewart was wasting his talent by playing it safe instead of taking artistic risks. Their competitive nature made the situation even worse. Both men had built their reputations as showmen who could command massive audiences and deliver electrifying performances. During one heated argument over the album's direction, Mercury allegedly declared, "There's only room for one peacock on this record, and we both know who has the better plumage." This comment perfectly captures the ego clash that doomed their collaboration. Neither man was willing to take a secondary role, and both wanted to be the star of any project they worked on. Without the ability to compromise or share the spotlight, their partnership was destined to fail. The failed collaboration represents a missed opportunity for both artists and for rock music in general. The combination of their voices and styles could have created something unique and memorable, but their personalities and work ethics were simply too different to make it work. The mysterious fallout with Michael Jackson. The planned collaboration between Michael Jackson, the king of pop, and Queen's frontman seemed destined to be one of the most significant partnerships in music history. Both were transformative performers who had redefined stage presence and pushed musical boundaries in their respective genres. Their initial recording sessions in 1983 sparked what should have been a historic partnership, but instead led to one of the music industry's most mysterious and disappointing fallouts. The trouble began when Mercury visited Jackson's Encino home studio to work on their planned 3-song collaboration. The songs There Must Be More to Life Than This, State of Shock, and Victory were all in various stages of completion, and expectations were high for what these two superstars could create together. However, the atmosphere quickly turned sour. According to Queen manager Jim Beach, Mercury called him after the third session sounding uncharacteristically agitated and frustrated. Mercury reportedly said, "I can't work with him. The man's gone mad. He sits there with that bloody chimp making me wait hours while he talks to mannequins. I'm not dealing with this level of madness, even for a #1 record." Mercury's frustration wasn't just about Jackson's well-known eccentricities, like his pet chimpanzee Bubbles or his collection of mannequins. He also found Jackson's perfectionism exhausting, which was ironic given Mercury's own exacting standards. Queen drummer Roger Taylor later reveals that Mercury came back from the Jackson sessions complaining that Michael wanted to redo vocal takes 40 or 50 times. "Even Freddie thought this was excessive," Taylor said, and that's saying something. But what truly drove Mercury away was what he perceived as Jackson's increasingly calculated and artificial image. Mercury felt that Jackson was more concerned with manufacturing a product than creating genuine music. In an unpublished interview with music journalist David Wigg, Mercury said, "Michael's not making music anymore. He's manufacturing product. Everything is focus grouped to death. Where's the spontaneity? Where's the soul?" Mercury was particularly dismissive of Jackson's attempt to craft a sanitized, innocent public persona. He reportedly told his inner circle, "He wants to be Peter Pan, the eternal innocent. It's all so contrived. At least I've never pretended to be something I'm not." This comment reflects Mercury's belief in authenticity and his disdain for what he saw as Jackson's fake image. The cultural and lifestyle differences between the two superstars became insurmountable. Jackson, who was a devout Jehovah's Witness at the time, allegedly expressed discomfort with Mercury's openly gay lifestyle and hedonistic behavior. According to Queen producer Reinhold Mack, Mercury came back from one session furious after Jackson tried to save him during a recording break. Mercury reportedly told Jackson, "Darling, I've got more heaven and hell in my little finger than you'll experience in your entire lifetime." This response shows how offended Mercury was by what he saw as Jackson's judgmental attitude toward his personal life. None of their planned collaborations were released during Mercury's lifetime. "There Must Be More to Life Than This" finally appeared on Queen's Made in Heaven album in 1995, but with all of Jackson's contributions removed. State of Shock was eventually recorded with Mick Jagger instead of Jackson, showing how completely the relationship had broken down. Perhaps the most telling moment came in a 1987 interview when Mercury waits, as asked about Jackson. His response was brief, but loaded with meaning. "Very talented boy. Shame about everything else." In those 6 words, Mercury summed up his complex feelings about an artist he respected musically, but couldn't connect with personally. The failure of this collaboration represents one of the biggest missed opportunities in music history. The combination of Mercury's theatrical rock sensibilities and Jackson's pop genius could have created something truly groundbreaking, but their incompatible personalities and lifestyles made it impossible. Understanding Mercury's standards. Looking at all of these conflicts, a pattern emerges in Mercury's relationships with other rock stars. He wasn't simply difficult or argumentative for the sake of it. His feuds and fallouts were usually rooted in his incredibly high standards for musical excellence and artistic integrity. Mercury believed deeply in the importance of musicianship, technical skill, and giving everything to your art. He had no patience for artists who he felt were wasting their talents, playing it safe, or not putting in the necessary effort. Whether it was Rod Stewart's casual attitude toward recording schedules, Elton John's retreat into safe commercial territory, or Michael Jackson's calculated image management, Mercury consistently criticized artists who he felt weren't living up to their potential. His conflicts also often stemmed from fundamental disagreements about what rock music should be. Mercury believed in complexity, theatricality, and pushing boundaries. He saw punk's embrace of simplicity as lazy, and he viewed any retreat from artistic risk-taking as a betrayal of what music could achieve. At the same time, Mercury's feuds reveal his own insecurities and competitive nature. He was fiercely protective of his artistic vision and wasn't willing to compromise when he felt his standards were being challenged. This uncompromising attitude made him a great artist, but also made it difficult for him to work with other strong personalities. These stories give us a more complete picture of Freddie Mercury, not just as the beloved showman and incredible vocalist, but as a complex artist with strong opinions and uncompromising standards. His feuds with these legendary rock stars weren't just personality conflicts. They were battles over the soul of rock music itself, fought by one of the genre's most passionate and uncompromising artists.